She walked into the grand concert hall clutching an old case held together by duct tape. The air turned cold when the judges spotted her. No designer dress, no fancy hairdo, just a simple woman in worn jeans and a faded blue sweater, carrying what looked like garbage. One judge snickered. "Is she lost?" "Probably cleaning staff who took a wrong turn," another whispered loud enough to sting. They didn't know Sarah Andrew could make a broken violin sing like angels wept. If you've ever been judged before you made a sound, hit like and subscribe. The Westmore competition loomed like a fortress. Crystal chandeliers hung from vaulted ceilings, red velvet seats empty but imposing. The stage gleamed under spotlights, polished and perfect, a battleground for musical virtuosos where careers were made or shattered. Sarah stood in the wings, 26, her chestnut hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, green eyes clear but nervous. She wasn't supposed to be here. Her hands, calloused from years of practice and farm work, clutched the battered violin case like a lifeline. Inside lay a cracked Amati violin, 200 years old, found in her grandfather's attic after he passed. The crack ran along its body like a scar, but the sound it made when she played, raw, haunting, alive. The judges sat like executioners, 5 of them, faces etched with decades of musical critique. Martin Reynolds, competition director, his silver hair slicked back, peered over half-moon glasses. Beside him, Vivian Chen, her red lipstick perfect, concert pianist with recordings in 42 countries. Daniel Norton lounged with arms crossed, conductor for the New York Symphony. Elizabeth James tapped her pen, critic for Classical Monthly. Thomas Wright checked his watch, composer with 3 Grammys gleaming at home. "Next," Martin called, voice echoing. "Sarah Andrew." She walked forward, boots scuffing the pristine floor. Not Juilliard trained, not conservatory polished, just Sarah and her broken violin against a world that had already decided she didn't belong. If you've ever walked into a room where you were already dismissed, like and subscribe. "You have 5 minutes," Martin said without looking up, "though I doubt you'll need that long." Sarah placed her case on the small table and unzipped it slowly. The judges leaned forward, then recoiled when they saw the violin. "Is this some kind of joke?" Vivian's voice cut through the air. "That instrument belongs in a dumpster." Sarah lifted it carefully, the afternoon light catching on the crack that ran from F-hole to edge. "It's an Amati from—" "I know what an Amati is," Daniel interrupted, "and that's not one. That's firewood." His laugh echoed through the hall. Sarah positioned the violin under her chin, but Thomas spoke before she could draw her bow. "Where did you train?" "I didn't. Not formally," Sarah said. "My grandfather taught me." The panel exchanged glances. Elizabeth scoffed. "We have musicians who've dedicated their lives to this craft. This isn't some open mic night at a country bar." "I can play," Sarah said quietly. "What, turkey in the straw?" Daniel mocked. "This is the Westmore. People wait lifetimes for this stage." Sarah began to tune the strings, and Vivian winced theatrically. "God, even her tuning hurts my ears." "I've prepared Bach's chaconne from—" Martin waved his hand dismissively. "Of course you have. Every amateur thinks they can handle Bach." He sighed dramatically. "Let's get this over with." Sarah raised her bow, but Thomas called out, "Wait, is that horsehair actually coming loose from your bow? This is painful to watch." She stood still, bow poised, refusing to break under their judgment. If you've ever had your passion mocked by experts, hit like and subscribe. "Maybe she should play Twinkle Twinkle," Elizabeth suggested, and the panel erupted in laughter. Sarah placed the bow on the string, but Martin interrupted. "I'm curious. Why even come here? What delusion made you think you belong on this stage?" Her fingers tightened around the neck of the violin. "Music isn't about belonging. It's about speaking when words fail." "Philosophy from the farm girl," Daniel muttered. "Charming." Vivian stood up. "Before you embarrass yourself further, let me show you what real musicianship sounds like." She strode to the baby grand piano at the side of the stage, sat down with perfect posture, and launched into a technically flawless rendition of Liszt. Her fingers flew across the keys, each note precise, each run immaculate. When she finished, she looked at Sarah with a smirk. "That's what we're looking for, not some sentimental story about Grandpa's broken violin." "Your turn," Thomas said, "if you still want to try." Sarah nodded, raised the violin again. This time she managed to draw the bow across the strings, producing the first haunting note of Bach's chaconne, but Elizabeth cut her off. Your posture is all wrong, wrist too stiff. Did your grandfather teach you to stand like you're milking a cow too? Let her play, a voice called from the back of the hall. The judges turned, startled. An older man in a simple suit walked down the center aisle. I'd like to hear it. Mr. Westmore, this is highly irregular, Martin protested. We have a schedule, and frankly, this contestant shouldn't have made it past the application stage. James Westmore, founder of the competition, took a seat in the front row. Play, he told Sarah. The judges fell silent, faces tight with annoyance. If you've ever found an unexpected ally when all seemed lost, hit like and subscribe. Fine, Martin snapped. You have 3 minutes, not 5. We've already wasted enough time. Sarah nodded, positioned the cracked violin, and closed her eyes. The first notes of Bach's chaconne filled the hall, tentative at first, then growing stronger. The crack in the violin created a unique resonance, a haunting overtone that shadowed each note. But 30 seconds in, Daniel theatrically covered his ears. My God, it's like cats fighting. The music faltered. Sarah opened her eyes. Keep playing, Mr. Westmore said quietly. She resumed, but Vivian began to hum loudly, deliberately off-key. Thomas tapped his pen against his notepad, creating a competing rhythm. Elizabeth flipped through her papers with exaggerated rustling. Sarah's eyes met Mr. Westmore's. He gave a slight nod. She took a deep breath and started again, playing through their interruptions. The music began to flow from her fingers, not just notes, but emotion. The story of finding the violin in her grandfather's attic after the funeral, the months of restoration, the nights practicing by lamplight after 12-hour shifts at the diner. Enough, Martin stood, clapping his hands sharply. Ms. Andrew, this is embarrassing. You're not competition material. Sarah lowered the violin, but Mr. Westmore rose from his seat. I said, let her play. James, with all due respect, Vivian began, we have standards. This... Standards? Mr. Westmore interrupted. Is mockery your standard now, Vivian? Is cruelty how we judge musical potential? The hall fell silent. Sarah stood frozen, violin at her side. Martin cleared his throat. Perhaps we should move on. Ms. Andrew, thank you for your time. No, Mr. Westmore said firmly. I founded this competition to discover authentic musical voices, not to create a playground for elitism. He turned to Sarah. Please continue. She raised the violin again, but Daniel stood up. This is absurd. I didn't leave La Scala to judge amateurs with broken instruments. He gathered his papers. Call me when you're serious again. He stormed off, footsteps echoing in the hall. Vivian followed, then Thomas. Only Elizabeth remained seated beside Mr. Westmore, looking uncomfortable. Play, Mr. Westmore said again. The room is quieter now. Sarah closed her eyes and sank into the music. Each note vibrated with the stories the violin had witnessed. The crack didn't diminish the sound. It transformed it, adding texture and depth beyond technical perfection. The chaconne flowed through her not as Bach had written it, but as her soul interpreted it. When she finished the first movement, she opened her eyes. Mr. Westmore was leaning forward, eyes shining. Elizabeth's pen hung suspended above her notepad, mouth slightly open. Continue, Mr. Westmore whispered. She played on, losing herself in the music. The hall seemed to hold its breath. The emptiness of the room amplified each note, sending it soaring to the rafters and back, filling every corner with sound that no perfectly preserved violin could produce. When the final note faded, there was total silence. If you've ever poured your soul into something that others tried to silence, hit like and subscribe. The silence stretched until Mr. Westmore slowly stood, his applause alone at first, then joined by Elizabeth's hesitant clapping. That, he said softly, is why this competition exists. Elizabeth nodded, scribbling furiously on her notepad. The tonality. I've never heard anything like it. The crack creates harmonics that shouldn't work but somehow do. Sarah lowered the violin, her hands trembling now that the music had stopped. Where did you say you found this instrument? Mr. Westmore approached the stage. My grandfather's attic, after he died. Sarah swallowed. He was a luthier, not famous, but passionate. He tried to restore this one for years. Mr. Westmore reached the stage and extended his hand. May I? She passed him the violin carefully. He examined it, running his finger along the crack, checking the label inside. Do you know what you have here? he asked, voice hushed. Sarah shook her head. This isn't just any Amati. This is one of Niccolo Amati's personal instruments. He looked up, eyes wide. The crack, it's been documented. This violin was thought lost in a fire in 1941. Elizabeth gasped. That's impossible. My grandfather, Sarah whispered. He never told me where it came from. Just that it was valuable beyond price, but not for the reasons people would think. Mr. Westmore looked at her with new understanding. He was right. The doors burst open at the back of the hall. Martin, Daniel, Vivian, and Thomas returned, followed by a distinguished man in an expensive suit. If you're ready for the world to see what was hidden in plain sight, like and subscribe. James, you need to hear this, Martin called, urgency in his voice. Anton Ziegler is here to judge the finals, and he refuses to... He stopped abruptly, staring at the violin in Mr. Westmore's hands. Anton Ziegler, director of the Vienna Philharmonic, froze mid-step. Is that... He rushed forward. My God, it can't be. Mr. Westmore nodded slowly. I believe it is. The Lazarus Amati. Vivian scoffed. That's ridiculous. The Lazarus was destroyed decades ago. Apparently not, Mr. Westmore said, carefully returning the violin to Sarah. Martin stepped closer, eyes narrowed. Where did you get this? Before Sarah could answer, Anton spoke, his accent thick with emotion. The crack. It's exactly as described in the archives. A lightning bolt pattern from the F-hole to the lower bout. This farm girl wants us to believe she just happened to find one of the most valuable violins in history in her grandfather's attic? Daniel laughed bitterly. Sarah held the violin close. My grandfather's name was Samuel Andrew. Before that, it was Samuel Andauer. Anton's face went white. Andauer? The luthier who disappeared from Vienna in 1938? Sarah nodded. He never talked about his life before America, only said that when the Nazis came, he took what mattered most. The hall fell silent again. Play something else, Anton whispered. Please. Sarah raised the violin once more and began to play, not Bach this time, but a Viennese folk melody, simple and pure, the kind her grandfather hummed while working in his shop. Anton closed his eyes, tears streaming down his face. When she finished, he opened them again. Samuel Andauer was my teacher's mentor. He was thought to have perished with his entire family. He escaped, Sarah said softly. Alone. Started over in rural Pennsylvania. Became Samuel Andrew, cabinet maker by day, violin restorer by night. Martin cleared his throat. Well, this changes things. Perhaps we should... It changes nothing, Mr. Westmore interrupted. Ms. Andrew earned her place here before any of you knew about the violin's provenance. Her talent spoke first. But now that we know what she's playing on, Vivian began. A great instrument doesn't make a great musician, Anton cut in. I've heard professionals with million-dollar Strads who couldn't produce half the emotion I just heard. He turned to Sarah. The violin found its voice through you. Daniel shook his head. This is still a technical competition, not a storytelling contest. Mr. Westmore smiled thinly. Actually, Daniel, it's my competition, and I say she advances to the finals. On what grounds? Thomas demanded. On the grounds that while you were mocking her, I was listening, Mr. Westmore replied. And what I heard was exactly what my competition was created to discover, authenticity that transcends technique. If you've ever been vindicated after being dismissed, hit like and subscribe. 3 months later, the finals of the Westmore competition were broadcast worldwide. The hall was packed to capacity, cameras positioned throughout, live streaming to millions. Sarah stood in the wings, no longer in jeans but in a simple black dress, her hair still in that humble ponytail. The violin, now authenticated as the Lazarus Amati, had been professionally restored, the crack carefully preserved as part of its history. Backstage, Martin approached her, smiling too broadly. Sarah, we're all so excited for your performance tonight, she nodded politely. Such an inspiring story, he continued. From unknown to sensation. I always knew you had something special. Vivian appeared at his side. Your publicity has been amazing for the competition. We've never had this kind of attention. Daniel joined them, beaming. I've told everyone I spotted your potential immediately, the raw talent beneath the rough edges. Sarah met his gaze steadily. Really? Because I remember cats fighting. He flinched. Thomas approached, extending his hand. No hard feelings about our first meeting, I hope? We see so many applicants, sometimes we're a bit abrupt. Abrupt, Sarah repeated. Is that what you call humiliation? Elizabeth, standing nearby, had the decency to look ashamed. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. Mr. Westmore appeared at Sarah's elbow. It's time. She walked onto the stage, into blinding lights and thunderous applause. The violin felt warm in her hands, like a living thing. As she began to play, the judges who had mocked her sat in the front row, their faces carefully composed in appreciation, too late to undo their cruelty, too public to show anything but support. If you've ever watched those who dismissed you pretend they believed in you all along, hit like and subscribe. 1 year later, rain pattered against the windows of a small violin shop in downtown Manhattan. Inside, students waited with instrument cases, watching the clock. The door swung open, and Sarah Andrews stepped in, shaking water from her umbrella. No longer the nervous woman in worn jeans, she carried herself with quiet confidence. The Lazarus Amati was safely displayed in the Westmore Musical Heritage Museum, her gift to ensure it would never be lost again. But today she carried a different violin, one she had crafted herself. "Sorry I'm late," she said to the waiting students. Among them sat a teenage girl with anxious eyes clutching a battered case. "Ms. Andrew? I don't think I should be here," Sarah smiled. "Why's that, Emma?" "My violin it's not good enough. My teacher at school said I shouldn't bother with serious lessons until I can afford a better instrument." Sarah took a seat beside her. "May I see it?" The girl reluctantly opened her case, revealing a student violin with a poorly repaired seam. Other students glanced over, a few whispered. Sarah lifted it carefully, examining the repair. "Who fixed this?" "I did," Emma whispered. "YouTube tutorials." Sarah nodded, then played a quick scale. The violin's tone was uneven, bright in some registers, muffled in others. She handed it back. "Emma, I won the Westmore with a cracked violin while judges laughed at me. This instrument has challenges, but it's not what limits you." She stood, addressing all the students. "Music isn't about perfection. It's about finding your voice." From the back of the room, a man cleared his throat. Martin Reynolds stood awkwardly, gray hair now fully white, a folder clutched in his hands. "I'm here about the teaching position," he said, eyes downcast. "I've brought my resume." Sarah smiled. Everyone deserves a chance to be heard, even those who once refused to listen. If you've ever come full circle from rejection to redemption, hit like, drop a comment, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that hit.